You know, if you've ever packed up your life and moved to a small town, you probably went into it with a very specific expectation.
Oh, yeah. Like peace and quiet, right?
Exactly. You expect predictability. You're trading the overwhelming chaos of a big city for a manageable rhythm.
Right, getting to know the neighbors, maybe dealing with a stray dog.
Yeah, or like fielding a minor noise, and you just want a clean, quiet slate. But what happens when that quiet slate is completely obliterated on your very first day?
It's a nightmare scenario.
It really is. And today on the deep dive, we are unpacking a single source. It's A. Payton's thrilling, genre-bending story, Jambalaya.
Such a fantastic piece of writing.
It is. And our mission today is to figure out exactly how this author manipulates genre, mechanically pulling the rug out from under you.
Taking us from a gritty, small-town police procedural straight into a supernatural, folklore-infused nightmare.
Right. And the pacing of it is it's relentless.
It is a phenomenal piece of narrative engineering. The way the story uses an impending natural disaster, Hurricane Maria, a Category 4 storm as the ultimate ticking clock, is what makes that genre shift work so well.
Because the storm isn't just a dramatic backdrop, right?
No, not at all. It is a physical barrier. It traps the characters and the reader in this escalating pressure cooker of dread.
So I want you, the listener, to put yourself in the shoes of the main character for a moment. Imagine you are Sheriff Michelle Simmons.
Poor guy.
Yeah, seriously. You just transferred from the sprawling urban landscape of San Diego to the Riviera de Bon, which is this quiet southern bayou town.
Right, you brought your wife, you bought a house on a hill, you want a slower life.
Exactly. But instead of settling in, your first week involves staring down a massive hurricane and a string of gruesome murders that completely defy logic.
It's quite the welcome wagon.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the way the author introduces the initial mystery is entirely designed to weaponize imposter syndrome.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't just get a body in an alley. We get three distinct, hyper-local crime scenes right before the storm hits.
And they are bizarre.
Right. First, Simmons is called to the local fish market, specifically the Alligator Man stand, where the owner is gutting a gator and finds a half-digested human head inside.
And notice how the author describes that head. It's not clinical at all.
No, it's super gross.
It's described as looking like a flesh-colored wax candle with milky eyes.
Ugh, yeah.
It immediately tells the reader that we are moving away from the sterile forensic reality of a city precinct and into something visceral, something deeply rooted in this specific environment.
I actually found myself a bit confused by the pacing here because before Simmons can even secure that first bizarre scene, he's pulled to a second one at George Lewis's pig farm.
Right, no time to breathe.
Exactly. And Lewis wants to slaughter his entire herd of 35 pigs. Why? Because after they ate a human leg wrapped in a butcher's blanket, they started looking at him with the knowing of a man.
Which is just a chilling line.
So creepy. Then, boom, a third scene at the koala vegetable farm.
Right, Margot and Sharon Koala.
Yeah, they take down scarecrows to prep for the hurricane winds and realize one of the scarecrows is a fully intact stuffed human corpse.
Just hiding in plain sight.
At first, I thought this was just the author throwing everything at the wall for shock value. It felt almost too fast. It's like being the new guy at a corporate job where on your first day, every single server crashes, but in this case, the crashes are mutilated body parts.
That's a great analogy. It feels fast because the narrative is mirroring Simmons's internal panic.
That makes sense.
What's fascinating here is how the author uses the local agriculture, the gator stand, the pig pen, the crop field, to aggressively isolate the protagonist.
Because they aren't just random drop sites.
Exactly. They're deeply tied to the land and the local economy. Simmons expects San Diego problems, and instead he is confronted with a brand of rural horror he doesn't have the vocabulary to process.
Wow, yeah. It's like when you institute a quarantine zone. The external threat, the incoming hurricane, forces the contagion, which in this case is the mystery, to multiply rapidly in a confined space.
Right. There is no time to investigate the gator before the pig farm calls.
But I struggle to understand why his boss, Chief Goodry, absolutely refuses to let the bigger, better-equipped mobile county take over the jurisdiction.
It seems reckless, doesn't it?
Yeah. I initially read Goodry as just an incompetent, prideful local cop cliché.
I wouldn't call it a cliché so much as a deliberate narrative wall. The author needs Goodry to be stubborn to justify keeping Simmons trapped.
Oh, I see.
If Goodry calls in the state police or the neighboring county, the tension dissipates. By having Goodry insist on keeping their business in their own backyard, the author forces Simmons to face this entirely alone.
Right, armed only with a small-town police force that is simultaneously trying to board up windows.
Exactly. Goodry even mentions that someone committed suicide by pig a few years ago to casually justify why they shouldn't panic.
Which is wild. But as the physical storm finally makes landfall, forcing everyone indoors, the metaphorical storm of the mystery changes shape entirely.
It has to, because the physical evidence is literally being washed away by the floodwaters.
Which forces the narrative to transition.
That is the crucial pivot. Once the hurricane hits, we are largely done with the outdoor crime scenes. The focus turns inward.
Into the station.
Yes, physically into the police station and narratively into the forensic clues left on the bodies.
This is where we get that chilling scene with Simmons and his colleague Devin Williams. They are hunkered down over a bowl of homemade chili while the rain hammers the station looking at the medical examiner's photos.
And this isn't just a wild animal attack anymore.
Not at all. The bodies were drained of blood, boiled, lightly seasoned, and carved with strange alchemical symbols.
The author uses those specific details of the boiling, the seasoning, the symbols to signal to the reader that we are no longer dealing with the conventional serial killer.
Yeah, something much darker is happening.
And the environment outside begins to reflect this shift from reality to mythology.
Because the hurricane plunges the town into an unnatural darkness, right?
Exactly. The locals on the police scanner aren't just talking about wind speeds, they're talking about the moon veil thinning and noting that there are absolutely 0 stars in the sky.
It's described as a complete void of light, and panic spreads over the radio about a swamp religion called the Bellows and an entity known as Old Scratch.
It's incredibly suffocating.
Totally. Then, right in the middle of this atmospheric dread, Chief Guidry texts Simmons an excerpt he managed to decode from the carvings on the victim's flesh.
Oh, that text.
Yeah, it reads, wait, let me get it. When the night swallows the stars, eaters of the dark fruit will emerge. Tainted meat, sour fields, fat of the beast.
It sounds like an apocalyptic prophecy.
Which is completely useless to a city cop trying to solve a murder.
Right. Simmons lacks the cultural context to decipher it.
And that leads to a brilliant narrative choice by the author. Simmons is sitting in his living room, completely defeated, looking at these horrific crime scene photos.
And who saves the day?
His wife, Karina. She's sitting next to him on the couch, calmly grading art papers. She looks over at his notes, and she is the one who drops a massive lore bomb about the Bellows.
Such a great scene.
She learned about it at a teacher's conference regarding religious psychosis. I have to admit, I didn't see that coming. Why use the wife, an art teacher, entirely removed from the gritty police work to crack the code?
Because it fundamentally shifts the power dynamic of the story.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, folklore almost always serves as a historical record of trauma.
Right.
The author uses an educator to deliver this lore because it grounds the supernatural horror in a very real historical context.
She tells that story about Nishab, right?
Yes. Karina explains the tragic origin of a figure named Nishab, a middle child slave with unique skin markings. His master skinned him alive and fed him to the pigs while the other slaves were forced to watch.
Just horrifying.
When the slaves cried out to the heavens, nothing happened. But when they cried out to the void, it answered.
Oh, wow.
It swallowed the stars, dropped a meteor on the master, and demanded the freed slaves bear its mark.
So the cult of the Bellows isn't just a group of generic, mustache-twirling evildoers.
Exactly. Their actions, horrific as they are rooted in generational pain and a historical injustice.
That makes them so much more complex.
They are serving a primal force that answered a plea for justice when human institutions failed them. By having Karina provide this historical context, the author elevates the horror from simple gore to a tragedy about vengeance.
I love how that recontextualizes the threat for the listener. It's not just a monster in the dark, it's the physical manifestation of historical trauma.
Yes, beautifully put.
But Karina doesn't just provide a history lesson. She actually solves the physical mystery in front of them, leading to an absolute masterclass in subverting expectations.
It's a turning point.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Simmons looks at the translated Bellows excerpt again. Tainted meat from the pigs. Sour fields from the koala farm, fat of the beast from the alligator.
All the pieces are there.
Plus the lightly seasoned bodies. And Karina connects the dots instantly. She says, just add some rice and you'll have a jambalaya.
God, it's so dark.
The symbols carved into the victims aren't a magical ward. The ancient prophecy is literally a recipe.
It's stomach-turning.
It really is.
Yeah.
Simmons realizes that this massive amount of food is going to the town's emergency shelter at Alma Bryant High School.
Where everyone is trapped together.
Right. The mayor had proudly announced they were serving hot jambalaya to all the hurricane refugees, catered by the Claytons, a local family.
Just a horrific realization.
Simmons calls Chief Guidry to warn him, but he's too late.
Yeah.
And the author doesn't even show us the shelter. We just hear it through Simmons' phone.
Which is so much worse.
We hear the exact moment Guidry realizes what he is eating. The audio description is haunting. Guidry vomiting, the screams echoing in the background, the sheer panic as hundreds of people realize they've just been subjected to cannibalism.
A total nightmare.
Let me pause here because I think this completely breaks the contract the author made with the reader in Chapter 1. Doesn't this twist permanently alter the genre?
It permanently alters the genre, and that is the genius of the sequence. It pivots from a whodunit into full-blown psychological and body horror.
Yeah, you aren't solving a crime anymore.
To understand why it works so well, look at the mechanics of the safe haven trope. During a natural disaster, a community meal at a centralized shelter is the peak of safety, comfort, and human solidarity.
Exactly. It's where you go to survive.
The author takes that exact symbol of comfort and turns it into the vehicle for the cult's horrific ritual. By doing that, the concept of safety is entirely destroyed.
Wow, yeah.
The hurricane outside is no longer the primary threat. The nightmare is already inside, literally on their plates.
If you've ever sought comfort in a community space during a crisis, that violation of trust hits incredibly hard. You survive a Category 4 hurricane just to become an unwilling participant in an ancient blood ritual.
Most stories would end right there.
Right. You uncovered the cannibalistic Bayou cult, the tragedy is realized, roll credits, but Peyton refuses to let us off the hook.
The scope just keeps expanding.
Just as the local police are scrambling to respond to this atrocity, a new, overwhelmingly powerful player enters the board, and they completely change the scale of the conflict.
It introduces a completely different type of dread, moving from localized, ancient horror to modern systemic terror.
We suddenly get the arrival of a company called Harborage. They're supposedly a massive pharmaceutical corporation there for disaster relief.
Supposedly, yes.
But they don't roll in with FEMA tents and blankets. They roll in with black helicopters, armed mercenaries carrying sniper rifles. The CEO of Atwood LLC, which, by the way, is the real estate company that built Simmons' neighborhood, and Eris Dagenhart, the granddaughter of the Harborage CEO.
It's a full-on military occupation.
It's a jarring shift in tone. You are yanked from ancient swamp folklore into the cold, clinical world of modern corporate militarism in the blink of an eye.
And the pacing doesn't let up.
It all collides at the final standoff at the flooded port. Simmons and Williams arrive on an airboat to find a cultist in a black robe standing on a roof in the pouring rain, holding a hostage.
Such a cinematic scene.
Very. The cultist is raving mad, screaming about void walkers and devils who walk among us, taking our minds through empty promises. But he isn't looking at the cops.
No, he is looking directly at the Harborage helicopters.
Right.
He explicitly calls them the perverters of Nishab's dream.
Yeah.
The ones who promise the world but return only hunger.
And then the supernatural explosion finally happens. From the starless void above, an impossible beast descends.
It sounds terrifying.
It's described as twice the size of a wolf, jet black, with backward hind legs, massive talons, and tendrils instead of fur.
Just a total abomination.
The deputies open fire, completely terrified, but their bullets bounce off. The beast tears the cultist's throat out, dragging him into the murky floodwater.
It's so chaotic.
And the story ends with a Harborage helicopter flying low over the water, not retreating, but actively hunting the supernatural entity with spotlights.
Like they were ready for it.
Right. So what does this all mean? Because I have to push back on the climax structure here. Suddenly, the murderous, cannibalistic cultists we spent the whole story fearing feel like, well, like the underdogs.
It's true.
We have a literal, unkillable monster from the void, but we also have a massive pharmaceutical corporation with a private army that seems entirely unfazed. They act like they already know these monsters exist and came specifically to collect them. I found myself wondering, who are the real villains in this story?
This raises an important question about power, exploitation, and disaster capitalism.
Well, disaster capitalism.
The author is giving us a brilliant thematic juxtaposition. On one side, you have ancient primal magic, the bellows, the cult, the beast from the void.
Right, which is brutal.
It's brutal, yes, but as we discussed, it's rooted in a historical search for justice for the oppressed.
Right.
On the other side, you have modern corporate supremacy in the form of Harbridge and Atwood LLC. The narrative mechanics strongly suggest that Harbridge isn't there for hurricane relief at all.
They used it as a cover.
They use the disaster as a smokescreen to hunt, or perhaps harvest supernatural assets.
So the beast, this terrifying ancient god of vengeance, is just a biological resource to a pharmaceutical company?
Precisely. It forces the reader to reconsider the cultist's final words.
When he was screaming about devils that walk among us.
Yes. When he said they take our minds through promises, he wasn't talking about the void or the beast. He was pointing directly at the corporate executives hovering in their black helicopters.
Wow.
The author implies that the cold, calculated exploitation by a multinational corporation is a far greater, more pervasive evil than a localized swamp cult could ever be.
That completely reframes the entire narrative. The cult was just a symptom. The corporation is the disease. What a ride this source material is. I mean, we started with a standard police procedural, waded through an intense hurricane survival story, uncovered a grotesque murder mystery tied to ancient vengeance folklore, and ended up staring down the barrel of a sinister corporate conspiracy.
It really covers a lot of ground.
A. Payton wove all of those threads together so seamlessly that you don't even realize the genre is shifting until you are completely trapped inside it.
It demands that the reader constantly reevaluate the power dynamics of the world they're reading about.
Yeah.
Every time you think you understand the threat, the author zooms out to reveal a larger, more menacing structure pulling the strings.
And on that note of reevaluating power structures, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Something that wasn't explicitly stated in the text, but is lurking right there in the background details of the story.
Think about the real estate company, Atwood LLC.
Yeah, this part is wild.
Early in the story, we learned that they built Simmons's new neighborhood on a high hill, specifically designed with advanced drainage to survive the severe Bayou floods.
Which seemed like a lucky break at first.
During the hurricane, it is one of the only areas that remains perfectly safe and dry.
Right. He felt completely secure there. He thought he made a smart real estate choice moving from San Diego.
But Atwood LLC arrived at the climax alongside the Harbridge mercenaries.
Yeah.
They are clearly deeply connected to whatever corporate operation is hunting these void walkers. So if Harbridge and Atwood are intertwined with these supernatural events, you have to ask yourself a terrifying question.
Oh, man.
Was Sheriff Simmons' transfer to this exact, highly unusual town a coincidence? Was his house placed on that specific high ground just to keep him safe from the floodwaters? Or was it a strategic placement?
Like keeping an asset safe.
Exactly. Was the new sheriff brought into this engineered nightmare by design?
If his entire life, his career transfer, and his home were all manipulated just to place a competent pawn in the middle of a corporate supernatural harvesting operation, that is deeply unsettling.
It adds a whole new layer of horror.
It really does. It just goes to show you should always keep questioning the dark corners of the stories you consume and the structures of power within them, because usually when you pack up your life and move to a small town, you expect predictability. But as Jambalaya proves, sometimes that predictable slate isn't shattered by chance. Sometimes the chaos is perfectly, meticulously engineered. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.